Welcome, everyone. My name's Tom Unwin. I'm the lead consultant at The Source. We've organized this webinar. It'll be presented by Gretchen Hausman, principal of the First Presbyterian Christian School in Spokane. A little while ago, we put out a call for presentations for people who had done something to engage. It's a frequent issue that comes up when we're talking to principals and district leaders about after post-COVID, the engagement of students, the engagement of families, and the engagement of communities. And Gretchen was one of several people who responded and has agreed to share her work with you. We think this is a good way for educational leaders to connect and to learn by sharing with one another. So I'm very, very appreciative, Gretchen, of you being willing to do this. She's put together a fantastic set of information here for you. And I'll close off just by telling you you're in for a treat today. We'll record the webinar and we'll send it out to everybody who registered. But once again, thanks for attending today, and I'll turn things over to Gretchen.
Well, good morning, and I am excited to be able to present to you something that's a passion of mine, and that's on the topic of engagement in not just engagement in the classroom, but among your staff and your school families, and of course your students, and how important that is to improve school culture and ultimately learning. So we'll get started. And once again, my name is Gretchen Hausman, and this is my 4th year as principal here at First Presbyterian Christian School in Spokane, Washington. Our objective today is to give you several new ideas that you can go and implement tomorrow that will increase engagement within your school with teachers, students, and families. I was excited when I looked at the list of participants today, and it looks like quite a few of us are private schools, which is awesome because we know how important it is to make sure that our families are connected to our school, because we want to make sure those families keep coming back. So, and then of course, it's so important that our families and our public schools are connected with us as well. We know that learning improves when families are connected and the students see that. So a little about myself. This is my 26th year in education. I really fought hard not to go into the family business of teaching, but it happened after I graduated from college with a degree in sports physiology. So I started an internship right out of college as a substitute teacher. I took over a classroom of 4th, 5th, and 6th grade mild to moderate special ed class with no training except for how to teach PE. So that definitely served me well in that class. And then I went ahead and enrolled in a credential program. I was in Southern California, where I was born and raised. And so I taught in the public schools in California for 22 years. And I've done both middle and elementary school, and have a passion for STEM. I was GATE certified in California. That's our gifted and talented ed down in California. I know each state kind of calls that something different. And then I also did a lot with mainstreaming special ed kids into my regular ed classroom. So I worked a lot with our special ed teachers. And then, of course, being from California, I have my CLAD, which allows me to teach kiddos from all different backgrounds and our English language learners. So a couple years ago, my husband and I decided to move our family to Spokane. And that's when I joined First Pres as their principal. And it's just been an amazing experience. I call myself a COVID principal because I have not had a normal school year yet. It has all been, around COVID. So I'm looking forward to this school year, as I'm sure you all are. All right, well, I'm going to jump right into this. We're going to start with talking about how we engage our staff. And I will tell you that the 3 topics I'm talking about today are pretty, well, first of all, I'm very passionate about them, but I could talk for hours about staff engagement and family engagement and student engagement on each of those. So this is just a summary and then I'm going to go through pretty quick. So if you guys have questions, put them in the chat, and I'll try and keep an eye on that. I know Tom and Mylene are kind of monitoring that chat as well. So, or you can always email me at the end if there's something that I went over too fast and you want to talk more about it. And of course, this is about engagement, so there will be a couple opportunities for you guys to join in on our discussion and sharing. So if you have a phone nearby that's got that you can do QR codes with, grab that. Otherwise, we'll put the links to the opportunities to engage in the chat as well. So let's jump right in. Engaging with your staff. First of all, when was the last time as a school that you read your mission statement together and really picked it apart? Our staff did this at our first staff meeting a couple weeks ago, and we looked at our mission statement and we really dug in and we looked at what part as a staff, whether you are a teacher, a principal, the office staff, or an assistant, or somebody that works in facilities, what part of that mission statement are you responsible for making that happen? So making sure that our staff knows, this is my role in making sure that our mission statement is carried out. And so just having that conversation with your staff. And then is there a connection between the school and our staff, and has that been established? So I make sure that our staff knows that I support them. For example, yesterday I had a phone call or an email from a parent, and I said, I went to the teacher. I said, before I respond, I want to know, give me some background here. So I want that teacher to know, I'm going to support you, and I want to know your side before I even talk to the parent. So making sure that our staff knows that they're supported, and then as building leaders, we have a responsibility in helping to develop that school culture. So when our staff knows that they're valued, that culture of welcoming students and families begins to thrive. I think those of us that have led through this pandemic, we've really had to dig down deep and make sure that our staff knows that they're valued, to keep those batteries charged and to keep our staffs moving forward. And I know the last few years has been quite a challenge with that. So here's just some things that I do to make sure that my staff knows they're supported. Let's see if I can forward here. There we go. So first of all, throughout the year, I do a staff check-in. I keep this, can you guys see when I move my cursor? Can you see it okay? I have this spreadsheet on my computer, and my staff kind of giggles at all the tabs that I have up on my computer, but I always tell them I know what each tab is. One tab is for my check-ins, and I just keep this spreadsheet there and make a little X mark or check mark whenever I do one of these things. So I have a fall check-in. My first check-in is with all my new staff, and that one's a little bit more intensive. We sit down for about 30 minutes and we go through some different things. But then I have a check-in just with everybody where they are given 15 minutes of my time or more if they need it. That door, the door is closed, no interruptions. We just sit and we talk, and I ask them where they're at. Hey, are you surviving right now? Are you thriving? Are you drowning? Where are you at? And how can I support you? So they know they can come in and check in with me anytime, but this is just really an intentional time for them to come and let me know where they're at. And we've built that trust that this is a safe time for them to share. And so, no judgment, whatever they want to share, they can share. And then we have, I just make sure that several times throughout the year, I leave them notes, whether it be on their desk or, in their mailbox. Hey, who doesn't love to walk in the morning and just have that note of encouragement? Like, hey, I saw, what you did the other day with that student, way to go. Or, your bulletin boards are looking amazing. Just any kind of little note of encouragement. We all love that. That's one of my love languages. And so I just, hope that my staff appreciates that. And sometimes they'll come and say, hey, thanks for that note. That was really brightened my day. And then of course, making sure that I give words of encouragement to all of my staff at some point. So I do keep track and make sure, like, oh gosh, I haven't checked in with that staff member in a while. So this chart just helps me to keep track of that. Sending them an email, again, hey, thanks for that great newsletter that you sent out. all these things, they just take a couple minutes, but they do mean so much to our staff, and letting them know how important they are to our school and to me. And then again, I check in with them in the spring, seeing where they're at. We do a lot to build community. Our staff loves to eat, and so we do a lot of, today we have a birthday celebration, and so each of us is in charge of celebrating one another's birthdays. So today I'm in charge of one of our teachers' birthdays, so I brought her some little treats, and just little things like that to build community within our staff. Tomorrow we're having our first Win Wednesday, and I'll share about that in just a moment. But we're going to have lunch together as a staff, and then get into our professional development time. So again, that's building that community where we know that we're there to support one another. I love to provide room service to my staff, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. That's kind of just a fun time for me. It's like one of my favorite parts of the job is I get to go around and bring them little treats and brighten their day. We have staff scavenger hunts, and I'll share about that in just a minute. Valuing their time. If it's a staff meeting that I can turn into a memo, do it. Give them that time. Giving them the gift of time is huge. So every year during Christmas, of course, as building leaders, we don't always have huge budgets to give them these extravagant gifts that we would love to give them, but we all can find time to give them that gift of time. So at Christmas, starting the first week of December, I take each one of their classes for about an hour, and I should mention, I have preschool through 5th grade here. So I take each one of their classes, and we do a project away from their classroom. It's an art project, it's a Christmas ornament, it's a STEM activity, whatever it might be. And that teacher can go and do whatever. I ask the Starbucks across the street from our school, hey, can I get some drink coupons for my teachers? And so as I'm taking their class, I hand them a little gift coupon or a drink coupon from Starbucks and tell them, go do whatever you want. This hour is yours. And, again, it doesn't cost me anything, but it's definitely a gift that they appreciate. So just giving them that gift of time. And then lastly, our Win Wednesdays, it stands for what I need. Just like you probably have a win time for your students, we have a win time for our staff. And so the last Wednesday of every month, our students are dismissed at noon. This is the first year we're trying this, and it was after our staff asked, hey, we need some time to collaborate together. And we also want some fellowship time. And so those of you in a Christian school, this is our first year of doing a whole staff chapel in combination with our church staff and our school staff. And it's just about 20-25 minutes where we're all going to be together to fellowship together, and then jump into our lunch together, and then some professional development and planning time. So I'm super excited for that. I'll let hopefully it's going to work out well. We'll find out this week. Tomorrow's our first one. So those are just some ways that I engage with our staff and making sure that they feel connected and supported. Here's some pictures of those things. The room service carts there, you can see that out of the blue, I just want you to know how much I care about you and appreciate you. Or we've got our grab your vitamin C, which stands for courage, creativity, courage and creativity. That was something that we definitely needed during the pandemic. Our local businesses are so generous. So you can see there, Starbucks provides us with quite a bit, although we do provide Starbucks with a lot of business, but they definitely provide us with some love there. I talked about the staff scavenger hunt. So once a year, I ask our parents to donate some little gifts. I get everything from boxes of flare pens to gift cards for local restaurants. They have some families that own businesses, and they donate some stuff from their business. But I hide things throughout the school, and the kids get to join in by helping their teachers find the little numbers that are hidden throughout the school, and then the teacher finds it and brings it to me, and they get to pick a gift bag that corresponds to that number. And it's really fun. But again, just a little thing that the families got to participate in it by donating. The kids get to participate because they help the teachers find the little numbers, and then the teachers get so excited because they feel loved by the little things they find. So All right, let's jump into students and connecting and engaging with our students. So this, first of all, I want to talk about, in order for our students to thrive, they have to have their basic needs met. So we talk about, in order for a student to bloom, they have to Maslow first. So there's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs there. And we need those kiddos to have those basic needs met, including, just obviously eating and sleeping and coming to school, in clean clothes and all that stuff. So that's huge first. Next, they need to have that emotional and physical safety, feeling safe and feeling connected in their classroom. And so this is something that our staff, definitely the first month of school, we work a lot on making sure that our students feel connected to us as staff, as well as the other students in their classroom. I came from a school where, of course, you start teaching that math the first day, but then you stop and think, okay, but are my kids connected to me yet? And if they're not going to be listening and learning. So just feeling that connection is huge. Making sure that our students have connected to one another, and then that feeling of safety. I should say that my school that I'm at right now, it's downtown. It's in the heart of downtown Spokane. And a lot of times when parents come to our school, they're like, oh, like, what do you do to keep your building safe? And so I tell them straight up what we do to make sure our building's safe. And our kids definitely feel safe. Yesterday, I had a family come and tour. Their little guy is autistic. And so when things are overwhelming to him, he'll have a meltdown. And so the mom walked in our kindergarten classroom and she's like, it's so calm in here. I said, yeah, because the kids, they feel safe. And so we're hoping that he'll feel safe and not have all those meltdowns that he was feeling in a big classroom where lots of stuff was happening. So also, kids need to feel like they belong. And it's one of my goals to make sure I know my students by their names and call them by their names. Now I'm lucky that my school isn't huge, so I can do that pretty quick. But it's so important that kids feel like, oh my goodness, my principal knows who I am. And, when they stop by my office, like they know, I know who they are, they know who I am, and we make that connection. So I spend a lot of time the first few weeks of school going into their classrooms, getting to know them, during times when the non-academic times, just sitting and talking with the students and making sure that, they feel safe and connected. And then providing that positive feedback, notes home and phone calls and things like that. A little more about me. I am a mom to 3 girls. 2 are in high school and 1's in middle school. So my home is pretty loud and busy with 3 teenagers. But one of my daughters has ADHD. She's a great student academically, but she can struggle with some things. And it was really hard for me as a mom to not get. Are we doing okay? Can you guys hear?
Yes, your sound faded for a few seconds there, Gretchen, but it's okay now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I was talking about my daughter having ADHD, and she's a great student, but she can struggle with things. And it was really hard as a mom to get those phone calls all the time about what my kid was doing that was negative at school and not hearing some of the good things that she was doing too. And so, just remembering that every kid has something good about them that we can celebrate. And so making sure that we are celebrating those things with those kiddos and also with their families and telling them, hey, today, here's something I noticed that your kid did, and I'm so proud of them. When a parent gets a call from the principal's office, their heart usually sinks. But if it's a call to celebrate, hey, your kid did this today, and I'm so proud of them, your families are going to be like, wow, my school really cares about my kid. And that's awesome. So, and then the next piece is goal setting. with our students. So I'm going to share this little piece, goal setting within the classroom. Yesterday, I walked into our first and second grade classroom, and the kids were like running up. We just talked yesterday, we introduced the goal bell, which is this bell right here. We had a group music time, and I introduced this goal bell and what that means and what you guys get to do with it for the year. And so I walked into the first and second grade classroom, and they're just running up to me. They're like, I'm on level 6, but my goal is to get to level 9. And I mean, I was just goals coming out of everywhere. And so it was so cool to hear the kids have something intentional that they're working for. You know, oftentimes with our state testing or whatnot, we set goals for our students, but are they a part of that? Do they know, hey, I want you let's set a goal here. You're at a 70 right now. Where would you like to be? And, you know, helping them to set those goals. We do it as when we sit around and plan for our students, but they need to be a part of that too and know, hey, I'm cheering for you. I want you to improve by 6 points or 10 points or whatever it might be. So we've got this goal bell, and we have a couple of preschoolers right now that are working to be fully potty trained. So that's a goal for them. We have a couple of kiddos that still get a little teary-eyed when they come in the morning. And so a goal for them is just coming in without that teary-eyed for, 3 days in a row. And if they do it, they get to go ring the goal bell. Whereas our older kids, their goals might be to move up a level in reading on their DRA, or move up, on their multiplication tables or whatever it might be. So they get to ring that goal bell when they reach that. So having some school-wide goal setting stuff is pretty awesome, and a way for kids to connect, because we know when we hear that bell ring that somebody's reached their goal, and we get to celebrate as a school. All right, so when you are doing your walkthroughs, you're looking to see, oh yeah, the students in that classroom are engaged. So we've got 2 examples here of engagement. We've got example number 1 at the top, and we've got example number 2 at the top. I'm sure we all agree that both classrooms looks like the students are engaged, part of the lesson, but which one, and you guys can put it in the chat or hold up a finger or whatever, which one would you say that more content is being learned? Would you say in picture 1 or picture 2? I'm seeing some picture 1s. Yep. Yeah. So picture 1 is actually from one of my 5th grade classes a few years ago, and those students were doing, yes, picture 1, Jeanette, includes social skills, whereas picture 2 doesn't. So either one does show engagement, but definitely there's more engagement happening in picture 1. And so those students were doing an engagement strategy where they were teaching one another, and then they were celebrating their success. And so this was where they're actually practicing their, and sharing content. And definitely we know when we teach someone else, the content sticks better. So picture 2 is kind of, probably how a lot of it's taught way back in our early days, where we're up at the front of the room and we're teaching and presenting, but it's missing that social piece, and it's missing, are these kids really connecting with the content? So let's talk about some ways to make picture 1 happen more in our classrooms. And this is something that I'm really passionate about, is that students should not be learning from their seats all day. Hey, you guys are sitting here for 45 minutes, and you're probably going to be like, okay, I need to get up and move around. Well, our kids need that too. It's so hard to learn when we're just sitting and there's no movement happening. And I have a link here to, and Mylene put it in the chat, a link to an article by Brad Johnson, who says that forcing kids to sit in their desk all day is just not going to be great for learning. The more physically active we are, the better brains are going to start to absorb that learning. I went to a workshop last week on, I had to get trained in how to help a diabetic student. And so it was a 4-hour workshop. And we sat there for 4 hours, and it was kind of funny. They had a big bowl of candy for us. And I told the teacher that I was with, I'm like, I just need to get up and walk around right now. Like, this is hard to sit here for 4 hours. So imagine our students. So the more that we can get our kids out of their seats in a controlled way, obviously not just letting them run around the classroom, but the more they're going to start to absorb what they're learning. The brain processes movement, and the way that it processes movement, it's processing learning. So when students are sitting still, they're not learning all that they could be. So how can we get our students moving in our classrooms in a safe way? So here are some examples of student engagement. And again, I could talk on each one of these for a while, so I'm going to skim through them pretty quick. The first one, partner talks. That's pretty common, turn and talk to your shoulder partner. But what about getting up and walking around the room and finding another partner? When I call hands up, pair up, we go and we find a person somewhere else in the room. Callbacks are fun, where, I call out something and you guys call back. My very favorite one is put your answer in your hand. So if I say, all right, everybody, what's 3 times 10? And they put it in their hand and they hold it there. And it gives everybody some time to process in their heads, because you don't want your fastest kids yelling the answer out first. So you give everybody some process time. Okay, I think everybody's got it. And then I say on the count of 3, I want you to throw your answer in the air. 1, 2, 3, they all yell 30 and they throw it out. Those are fun, and it's getting them to move. Kagan structures. Kagan's a great program, and you guys could Google this, and they actually will come to your school and do trainings. My previous district, we did 5 days of training on Kagan. It was part of our district initiative for a couple of years, working with improving student communication with one another. And it's pretty powerful. It changed my way of teaching. It got to the point where I could do so many Kagan structures with my students in a day that I could kind of just go sit and let them teach. Obviously, I didn't get to that, but it's really, there's some pretty awesome programs. And they have some books too that you can purchase to learn more about Kagan. So, and again, they will do trainings with you. Whole brain teaching strategies. If you've heard of Chris Biffle and his super improver program, great guy. I got to go to a training by him a few years ago where, just teaching kids how to write a sentence. Don't start just writing, but your little first graders, and they're learning to do a capital. And so they're saying the dog walked. The dog walked, and then they make a motion for putting a period. So getting those hands moving as they're talking. Shared work. So this is an activity. I was actually sharing it with one of our math coaches yesterday, where you give the kids one worksheet for 2 students, and there's 10 problems, and you tell student A, you're going to do all the odds. Student B, you're going to do all of the evens, and then they rally back and forth, and they're coaching each other. So student A starts with number 1, but student B is coaching them through problem number 1, and then they switch, and student B is going to do number 2, but student A is coaching. So yeah, there was 10 problems on there, but they only did 5, but they talked each other through the other 5. And so it's pretty powerful. They're teaching one another. If they get stuck, they don't have to sit there and like, I'm stuck, now what? No, they could talk about it. Song and dance, finding ways to get stuff to stick by singing and dancing. I'm a horrible singer, but my students seem to always appreciate my songs. So my family, not so much. My students, though, they were a much better audience. Doing brain breaks. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with websites like Go Noodle, or just getting up and doing some jumping jacks. So I used to put up a PowerPoint with math problems where I wanted the kids to solve, but every 2 math problems, they would have to get up and do some kind of movement. So like jumping jacks, or running in place for 5 seconds or whatever it might be. And doing individual whiteboards. A lot of us probably have whiteboards in our classroom where the kids work out their problem. And then we say, 1, 2, 3, boards up, and they all put their boards up and we can quickly check work. Getting them out of their seat actively around the room. I love Scoots, and if you're not familiar with Scoots, they have a lot of them available for free on Teacher Pay Teachers, where you put a problem at every desk, and then the kids have a chart and they rotate around desk to desk. You have a timer that lets them know every 10 seconds we're going to move or whatever it might be, or where you just post problems all over the room. And they walk the room and they're answering it. And they know you have to have all 10 questions answered within 20 minutes. But they're not sitting at their desk doing it. They're walking around. Now, I will say, obviously, this takes a lot of training with the students and a lot of modeling done by the teacher as well as the students, and just reminders, and the kids, though, they appreciate it because they're like, oh, we're not sitting at our desk doing this. Okay, then I want to do this. Whereas those kids that can't handle it, okay, you're going to be at your desk. And after a while, they start to realize, yeah, we want to do this kind of stuff. The Snowball Game is fun, where they write a question or write an answer to something and they throw it across the room in a snowball. Obviously, a lot of practice with that and modeling. But I used to do that with my 5th graders and they thought it was a blast. $10,000 pyramid, where you put, I'm wondering, do you all have projectors or interactive whiteboards in your classroom? That this would be an activity where you would need a projector. So you put a vocabulary word up on your projector, and the kiddos, yes, somebody just posted a link to some of the Kagan books in our chat. So you put a vocabulary word up on your projector and students stand face to face. The one with their back to the projector is the one that's trying to guess the word, and the other one is trying to give them like hints of what the word is. I'll show you a picture of it in a second. And then they celebrate that they get it right. That kind of goes with partner quizzing. Read the room, write the room, where you have posters around the room with different questions on it and they work together to go and answer. Project-based learning is always fun. When you're doing, let's say, a science unit on weather, and you give them a real life weather situation, and for example, a hurricane's coming, do you evacuate your town or not? And they work together as a team to figure that out. That's pretty powerful, and a lot more powerful than sitting there answering questions about hurricanes. So my favorite no is where I have every kiddo answer a question. Usually it's a math problem and on a Post-it, and they go and post it on the board anonymously. And then we look at the wrong ones. And this is fun. Like we look at a wrong one and I celebrate all the good things that the student did. And that's why it's my favorite no. Like I love that they showed their work and that they started here and they got to here, and then usually the kid will pipe up and go, oh, I know what I did wrong. And I'm like, oh, you didn't even have to confess that it was you. But that's always fun. Cross-age reading, where you take your older kids and you let them go and read to kinders in 1st grade. Let me tell you, they will practice that expression like never before because they get so excited that they're reading to somebody that's excited to hear them. Cross-age peer tutoring or peer teaching. So probably 5 years ago, my 5th graders were studying, what were these? Oh, sound and motion. Well, so were our 2nd graders. And so I had my 5th graders take what they were learning, and they created little PowerPoints and activities, and they went and taught the 2nd graders. Myself and the 2nd grade teacher, we just kind of stood back and we watched, and it was pretty awesome that our 5th graders were teaching the content to the 2nd graders, and a lot of really cool learning was happening on both sides. So those are just some different ways to get your kids really engaged outside of a textbook, outside of paper pencil, and just get them up and learning and engaged in their content and their learning. All right. So here's some pictures of some of those things. This one right here is those whiteboards that we talked about. This is some of that cross-age reading, and these are photos from my 5th grade classroom and then my current school too. This is that rally coach back and forth that I was talking about, where student A does some of the work and student B does some of the work, but they're coaching each other on each of the problems. This was fun. My students would tell me what stuck with them that day as far as learning. So it gets them to reflect what they learned that day, and then, what they're celebrating that they were excited about. And of course, kids love to write on the whiteboard. So what better way, This is that $10,000 pyramid that I was talking about. So this student here was giving hints to the student with his back to the vocabulary word. Some more examples of engagement here. Again, working with a partner on something. That's a lot of what this is. This is quizzing a partner. So this student had a question and she quizzed this student, and then this student quizzed this student, and then they traded questions and went and quizzed other people. This right here was when I taught 5th grade and they were getting ready to transition into 6th grade. I had some students that had some fear about going to middle school. So I took about 25 kiddos from our 5th grade up to the middle school one day, just those kids that had that fear, like, their parents were worried, the kids were worried, and we worked with their leadership, and the kids got, all those, the other kids were kind of out of the picture, and it was just this small group, and they got to just really connect with the leadership kids up at the middle school, ask questions, and then of course we did some really fun games, but it kind of helped them to have that, hey, I think I'm excited now about middle school. Here's some more team building in the classroom. I know my previous school has one day a week where every classroom does a team building activity. And so this was one example. Oops, I just accidentally went forward, sorry. This group here, they are working together to build a water tower to keep our water tank safe. And they were given 3 sheets of paper, and they have to build a water tower that's going to hold a water bottle. So that was definitely a team building activity. And being that it was in Southern California, the water tower had to be earthquake proof too. And this group here, they are doing, it's a Kagan structure. It's called Showdown, where each of them has to write an answer to a question, and then one leader calls Showdown, and they share their answers and they talk about them, and then that leader can go check an answer key too if they need to. But so they're doing some shared work. These students here are doing a give one, get one activity, and let's say this was a reading comprehension activity. So there was 10 questions on the page. Obviously, you give 10 questions to a kiddo that reading comprehension is the thing they despise the most. And they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. But you tell them, hey, you just have to do number 1. Oh, really? Okay. And each table gets assigned a different question. And if they want to work on it together as a table, great. I can quickly go around and go, oh yeah, you've got it right. You've got it right. And then they get up and they go and find someone else. Hey, I need number 2. Who can give me number 2? Okay, they think they're all cheating because they're getting answers from one another. But what you see is the teacher in the classroom or as the instructional leader is you see, oh, no, they're talking about it. Hey, number 2, the answer is this, and here's why. They're talking about it. And pretty soon, a 10-question sheet of reading comprehension, it's done in 15, 20 minutes, and they have a pretty good understanding because they've been talking about it. And there's that social skills piece. During the pandemic, we lost so much of that social skills teaching. But these types of activities that you can encourage your teachers to bring into their classrooms, not only are they covering content, but they're getting in that social skills piece and that learning to talk to one another and communicate. Another way that we engage our students at our school, and this actually just brings everyone together. This is my previous school, but my current school has done this as well, is school-wide STEM days, where we pick a topic And we have every grade level comes to, in this case, it was the MPR, multipurpose room, for about an hour and a half, and they do activities covering that topic. So our very first one was a Halloween related one, and it was like ooey gooey science, and it was pretty amazing. So this is my partner teacher back when I taught 5th grade. He and I put on a whole ooey gooey science presentation for the school. And again, we had, kindergarten for an hour and a half, and then we had the 1st grade and 2nd grade and so on. And then all the kids got to make their own slime, and it was pretty amazing. Later in the year, we did one about forces in motion, and the kids got to make their own Lego cars and race them. And we had marble roller coasters that they built. Another time we did one talking about the food chain. And so kids did an activity with building food chains, and then we dissected owl pellets. That was a pretty fun. Imagine about 700 kids doing owl pellets for 2 days. I was sneezing like crazy after that, but it was really a cool thing. They even weighed their owl pellets, and it was pretty awesome. Again, this is a good time to bring in our families and our parent volunteers to get help with this, because it was just a pretty amazing thing. And the kids get so excited to see. I mean, I can tell you, when I left the school, the kids were on fire for science. And anytime that any teacher said it's science time, I mean, these kids were just so excited. But it's little activities like this that are going to get them just pumped up. All right, so let's talk a little about cultural awareness. It's our job as school leaders to make sure that our teachers are preparing our kids, and I call it here our Spokane bubble, but whatever your community might be, making sure that they are getting prepared to leave their little community or wherever it might be, and by being culturally aware. Now, I taught in California for years, so I mean, this happened right in my classroom, but sometimes our communities that aren't as diverse, we have to help bring this into our classroom. So diverse literature. Yesterday, when I was in our 1st and 2nd grade classroom, they were reading and talking about immigration and refugees, and they brought in a book, and I can't think of, it was about abuela and mango. I think it was called Mango. Yeah, anyways, bringing this into our classrooms. Different activities that brings in diverse content into our classrooms, and then making the unknown known. And I'll talk about that in a second. So some activities. Last year, our upper grade students did an economic study where they were reading books like Lemonade War and Lawn Boy. That was kind of their lit circle books. And then they developed a business plan for a hot cocoa stand I remember I talked about the gift of time. And so I took the students and we followed the stock market, and we pretend invested $10,000. And so that was my time with our students. And so anyways, part of that was we brought in what we called the Currency Museum. And we brought in, we are very lucky here that at our school upstairs, we have a language school where we have adult refugees learning English. So I brought in about 6 of them from different countries, and they set up a museum of their currency from their countries. And our students went around and talked to each one of them and learned a little about their country, found their country on the map, had to draw a picture of their country's flag, and then did a coin rubbing of their coins from their country. And the kids got to hold their money in their hand, and the adults shared what the money was called, and it was amazing. We expected it to last maybe like 15 or 20 minutes. After an hour, we had to finally tell the kids, okay, it's time to go back to class. But it was such a cool experience for these kiddos to realize that outside of our little bubble, there's this whole other world out there with, different types of money that's exchanged. And if we were to go to their country and use a dollar bill, like that just wouldn't work. And you have to use their money in their country. Another cool experience. So when I taught in California, I had kids from 5 different continents. most of them first generation here in the United States. And so we would do a cultural feast every year. I knew that this was a pretty powerful thing when I had a little guy from Guatemala, and he had never had egg rolls and he had never had apple pie until our cultural feast. And what a cool experience for these kids to get to try foods from other cultures that they might not get to try. So I've got my preschool teachers right now, they do a color of the month. And so they are bringing in different foods that are different colors into their classroom. And connecting, we have a couple of businesses here, right here in downtown that serve different types of cultural foods. So just connecting with those businesses and asking, hey, can you bring in some samples for our kids? We're studying about this country right now. And so bringing that into your classroom and getting the kids to connect, it's one thing to read about it in a story, but then to actually taste the food and get to try it out for ourselves is pretty awesome. Expert speakers, I used to read Mulan with my students. And so I would try to find someone from China that would feel comfortable coming into my classroom and just sharing some parts about their country and some of the cultural experiences that my kids might not get to hear about. So again, and I know I'm talking to you a lot about what we can do in the classroom, but as school leaders, it's getting excited about these things and encouraging and supporting our teachers in doing these. So next, making the known unknown. This was something that really opened my eyes several years ago when we were working on closing the achievement gap between our different socioeconomic levels of kiddos. We brought in a speaker and she shared this with us, and I thought, oh my gosh, had no idea that, kids come from all different backgrounds and knowledge. I was brought up in a home with 2 teachers for parents. And so, just stuff that I learned as a kid, I thought everybody knew that. I had a room full of books, whereas my husband was brought up in a home where they didn't have picture books in their homes, and they had very limited experiences as far as, going to a farm on the weekend or whatever. And so, remembering in our classroom that our kiddos don't have all those life experiences that we just assume every kid has. And so take a look at these. Let's look at the blue outline, the problem first. If you were to ask your students to solve this problem, what background information do they need to know that's not explained in the problem? So in order to solve that, if someone wants to just unmute and shout it out, that would be fine. So what background information do you need to know to solve that blue problem?
How many legs cats and geese have?
Yeah, exactly. Most of us haven't seen geese land. We might have seen them fly over us, and watching a goose fly, you think they don't have legs at all, but not all of us have even seen a goose up close. So how do we know it only has 2 legs? And then cats, what if you don't know what a cat is? You've never experienced a cat. So that's a huge thing there. And we'll think, oh, this kid got this problem wrong because they don't know how to do the math. No, it was actually because they didn't have the background to know what's a goose and, how many legs does it have? How about the green problem there? Does somebody want to unmute and talk about some of the background that you need to know to solve that green outline problem?
What's a dozen?
Yep.
I've seen a similar problem with asking about a deck of cards. So they gave numbers, but you had to know that there were 52 cards in a deck.
Yeah. So what if a family's never played cards before, or you've, also, most students don't call them hens, they call them chickens. So they don't know what a hen is. And, so again, a kid might get that problem wrong, and it has nothing to do with them not knowing how to do the math. It has to do with they don't have the background knowledge. The training that I went through for this was talking about how, let's say it's a math problem about a pizza. So you have all the kids close their eyes first, and we're just going to imagine the pizza, What kind is it? What's it smell like? What toppings did you put on it? Is it circle? Is it a rectangle? Because you know there's rectangular pizzas out there. Yeah, that really confuses kids with math, right? So we just talk about the pizza. And now that we've visualized it and our room is smelling like pizza, now we can dive into that problem. And what does it look like when we break it into eighths and that those are triangular pieces in our pizza? So just making the content come alive for these kiddos and making sure that they have that background knowledge that they need to solve problems, or, you know, making connections, let's say in social studies. You know, we're giving them some pretty heavy content in social studies and we just jump right into it and they're reading from a book and they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But if we show them on a map and we pretend, you know, we put on our, let's say we're talking about the Oregon Trail and we talk about it, you know, let's point to it on a map. All right, everybody, we're going to get in our covered wagons and we're going to put on our boots and pretend, but kind of visualize what it felt like being a kid walking on the Oregon Trail. Like that makes that lesson come alive to them. Because if you're just talking about it, they're like, yeah, I have no idea what a covered wagon is. And, you know, what do you mean I can't have my cell phone while I'm walking on the Oregon Trail? It doesn't connect to them, but making it come alive. Here's some pictures from that currency museum that I was talking about earlier. And the kiddos carried around this little journal where they drew the flag and they did a coin rubbing. And then here's some of our guests that were sharing the currency with the students. So this is one of those times where we're bringing in our community members and they're connecting with our kids and it's making the content come alive. Okay, here's one of those times I want you guys to engage with this activity. So if you could click on or scan that barcode or the QR code, or Mylene's going to put the link in the chat and we're going to go to a Jamboard. And I want to brainstorm with you, what are some reasons that families would not get involved with school? You know, we work so hard to send out emails and flyers and all the things, inviting families to an event. And, you know, you have the same 50 families that show up to every event. And then there's those kids where like, my parents don't want to come. You know, so how can we really connect with those families that the kids are like, yeah, my mom's not going to bring me. I already know it. What can we do? So what are some reasons that those parents would be like, nope, not going to that school event? So if you can click on that Jamboard, and if you're not familiar with Jamboards, you grab a little Post-it over here on the side, the little sticky note, and click on it. And you can type your thought. You're welcome. Oh, it's asking for access. Oh no. Oh no. I wonder if it is blocked because I did it on my school account. 1 second. Let me see if I can fix that. Hold that thought. Let's see. There we go. I'm trying to make sure that this is okay. We should be good. Give it a try now. You might have to refresh. Is it working now? Oh, I saw somebody added. Cool. Okay. All right, so we've got a couple of them that have been shared. Looks like a lot of us have kind of shared the same thing right here, afraid past bad experiences, their own past bad experiences with school. So this was one that was always hard for me to understand. What do you mean, you know, a negative experience? So let's talk about something that we might understand. How about going to the dentist? When I was a kid, I loved going to the dentist. And then as an adult, I had one bad experience at the dentist. Like I still remember the tooth and the horrible experience that I went through. And now when I have to go to the dentist, and now I love my dentist, he's wonderful. And it's different than that one that I went to with the bad experience. But like, I get that funny feeling in my tummy where I don't want to go, you know, and so it's taken me a while to overcome that. And so some parents have that same experience. Maybe growing up, their own school experience wasn't so great. And so they get that icky feeling in their stomach when they have to take their kid to a school event. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, you know, the teachers are going to know that I was a bad kid in school, or I had a negative experience, or whatever it might be. And so we have to help them feel welcome and feel comfortable. Or maybe they've had a bad experience with their own child in another school, and now they're at your school and they're like, yeah, I'm still kind of nervous about that. So helping them to overcome that. Yeah, school not being a priority. Hey, I just send my kids to school because I have to. But, you know, it's not a priority for me. I'm doing okay, and I didn't finish school. Forgetting the date. Yeah, like, I mean, I still have parents that are like, oh, I didn't know that tomorrow's a minimum day. And we're like, oh my goodness. Or we don't have school on our 2-parent conference days. And every year we still have a few families that come in ready to drop off their kids. And we're like, there's no school today. And, you know, like, no matter how hard we work to communicate that, it's still, somebody's going to miss it. And then the other obligations. So whether that be work or sports. Yeah, I know that there was a few nights when I had to choose, like, do I take my kid to soccer practice or do we go to the school event? And then not feeling welcome on campus. That's huge. You know, starting right at your office staff. Does your office staff make everybody feel welcome? What doesn't matter how they come in dressed, or, you know, what language they speak. Do they still feel welcome when they walk through those doors? So all of those things are huge, and definitely things that we as school leaders have to work to overcome. So let's go back here to my my presentation, and we're going to talk about some ways to overcome those things. So first of all, personal invitation. When I'll give you an example. Last year, my daughter's school, you know, of course, with COVID, they weren't allowing parents to be a part of the school, or on campus, I should say. This was her elementary school. And so, you know, but we're like itching to be a part. It was a new school, and we just really wanted to be a part. So they sent out an invitation for parents to join this kind of parent group. It was going to be a book study. And I saw it come through my email, and I'm like, okay. And I just deleted it. Well, a few days later, I got the email again, but this time it was personalized to me. Like, Gretchen, we would love for you to be a part of this this book study, and we hope that you'll join us. And I'm like, oh, this one had my name in it. Like, it wasn't, it was personally to me. And so that made me a little bit more excited about wanting to join. Like, wow, her principal went out of her way to make sure that I was invited. And what it was their teachers were doing a book study on this book here, The Brain, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. And so they had a parent group that was also doing the book study at the same time. And so as parents, and we were a very diverse group of parents, we would get together on Zoom and we would talk about the book. We would do like 2 chapters a week, and the teachers were doing it too. And so the principal was sharing the feedback that she was getting from us as parents with the teachers as they were doing their book study. And it was pretty cool. Another example of kind of the opposite, how I didn't feel welcome at a school, was my oldest daughter. She went to a school after she left my elementary. She went to a school for 6th grade where they were on year round. So I got to walk her to school every day for a whole month. And I passed her principal every morning, and the principal never said good morning or like welcomed me to their school. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, I don't feel welcome here. And then I kind of was like, I wonder if my kiddo is feeling welcome. So that was kind of the flip side of being made feel welcome to the school and part of the community. Again, those personal invitations, you know, as my parents are leaving here at the end of the day, I walk up to them and say, hey, are you coming to our 80s family dance tonight? And they're like, oh, the principal's now personally invited me. Yeah, I probably should make sure my kiddo goes, because they're sitting there like, Mom, we need to go. We don't have anything going on tonight. So those personal invitations are huge. I love pickup and drop off duty for this reason, that you can personally talk to parents, you know, hey, don't forget, we've got this happening. We'd love for you to be a part of that. Oh, thanks, Jeanette. I know. I'm sorry. I'm running over again. I'm so excited about all of this stuff, but thank you for joining us. And I know Tom's going to make the recording available. So I definitely, I will share my email and info at the end. So thanks, Jeanette. So where was I go? Oh, personal invitation. Learning more about their background and making a connection. So my previous school, my principal found out that my husband likes to DJ. He just does it for fun. And so he became our official school DJ after a while. And so that was kind of my principal's way of bringing him in and getting him involved. We had a community garden. And so my principal reached out to some of those families that we knew that was definitely something they were passionate about, and made sure that they joined us on our garden committee. We had some families that, you know, their background was in construction or whatever it might have been, and made sure that there was a project for them to work on at our school. So finding out about your family's backgrounds and making a connection is huge. And then, yeah, that communication piece, although we talked about it earlier, it doesn't matter how hard you communicate, there's someone that's going to be missed. So then also making that personal invitation is important. And there's a QR code and a link there to an article about identifying those struggles with just connecting with families and helping families to overcome some of those hurdles that keep them from wanting to come to your school. So here's some ideas for family engagement. Like I just shared with you, that parent book study that I did with my daughter's school. The Watchdog program, if any of you have heard of this, you can Google it. It's a national program where you get dads involved with helping just to kind of be extra eyes at your school for security reasons. They don't really take on a security guard job, but they're just extra dads out there in the morning at drop off or pickup or whatnot. We talked about a garden committee. If you guys have a school gardening program, bringing some of those parents in, that's just a passion of theirs, and asking for their advice and their help. Yearbook committee, take that off your teachers' plates and ask a couple of parents to take that on, whether it be taking photos or whatever. And I do have to add to this, of course, you need to follow school and district guidelines as far as having your volunteers background checked and you know, what is allowed within your school's insurance and all that good stuff. So just as a side note there. Special event help, you know, personally asking. We have a fund run coming up. And so there's a couple of parents that I personally go to. You know, I put out a call for volunteers, of course, and then personally going to a couple of parents and saying, hey, you know, I could really use your help with the check-in table. Do you think you can be a part of that? And again, that personal invitation. So maybe it's a parent that isn't so involved in school, and you can ask them, could you be a part of this specific job? And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, you want me to be a part of that? Awesome. Build with a Buddy. This is a little event where we just bring in families, and, you know, it used to be just dads and grandpas, but kind of opened it up to VIPs that can come and they do a STEM activity with their child. And it's just a fun time for them to be engaged in the classroom. And this goes back to that making parents feel welcome though, and knowing like, hey, I'm not gonna tell you all the negative things about your kid when you walk into my classroom. We're just there to celebrate your child. So don't worry, we're not gonna have a parent conference. You're not gonna have to feel uncomfortable. We're there to have fun and celebrate your kids' learning. School-wide STEM days, I showed you some of those pictures before. These can also happen in the evening, and I'll show you that as well. If you know that a family has a special talent that they can share, as I talked about earlier, you know, some of my families with different cultural backgrounds and bringing them in. We used to read the talking cloth, and I had no idea what a talking cloth was. And it's a cloth from a blanket that has a lot of meaning to families. And it was a story about a family from Ghana. Well, I happened to have a family that year from Ghana. And so the mom actually brought in her cloth and showed me how she wraps her baby to hold it onto her body. And she showed the students and she let the students try it on. And what a great connection. That mama might not have ever really gotten involved in our school, but she did. And it was pretty amazing. And after that, I mean, she wanted to be in the classroom all the time. Guest readers are always fun. Career days. One of my daughters just went to a trades night at her high school where different trades career people like plumbers and welders and our, Department of Transportation and had all kinds of stuff set up. I mean, she came back and she had welded this like phone stand. She had picked up something with a backhoe and all this stuff. And she came home so excited about that. A lot of times when we think career days, we think, firemen, police officers and teachers and doctors and things like that, but we forget about our trades. And so this was a pretty powerful night for her. And she came home so excited about all the different careers that we don't always celebrate. But I'm sure there's a lot of families at your school that would love to share their different trades that they do. Newcomer connections. So this is huge, especially if you are in a community with a lot of families that don't speak English. And so I'll tell you a funny story about this, but then connect it to this in just a second. When we moved here to Spokane, I had never sent my kids to school in the snow. So I didn't know how to send my children to school in the snow. And so thankfully I had already connected with a couple of our neighbors and they were able to explain to me how to do that. Now think about, you're new to this country. How do I send my kids to school in this country? And so connecting your new families with a family that's already established at your school that speaks the same language as them, that new family can know that they can call and say, hey, there's this event. I don't know what it means. Can you explain it to me? Because a lot of times they won't call you at the school. There's a lot of pride and they're just, there's a language barrier too, and they don't want to call you, but they want to be involved, but they don't understand it. So connecting them with another family that speaks the same language as them is so helpful. And just like me learning how to navigate the snow, having a family that can help them just to navigate school in the United States is very helpful. Or just be new to your school and making sure that new families are connected. So where else am I going here? I'm skipping around. Oh, Parent Appreciation Morning. I'm going to show some pictures with that. And those of you that are at private schools, this is a great activity to do kind of right before registration to let parents know we appreciate you so much and we're so thankful that you chose our school. And so there's of course a lot of other ones there as well, but we'll talk about a few of them with some pictures. So here's Parent Appreciation Morning. We did a drive-through where I asked Starbucks to donate some coffee and they did. Our local grocery store gave me a huge discount on some donuts, and then we made some little fruit parfaits And we served the families as they came through at drive-through. And we just said, we just are so thankful for you. And we appreciate you for bringing your kiddos to school every day. And we want to spoil you. So here you go. And definitely left the parents with smiles on their faces that morning. And every parent, was like, wow, my school appreciates me. That's pretty awesome. So pretty cool thing. There's the Build with a Buddy that I talked about earlier, those STEM activities. And a lot of these photos are from the last 2 years. So that's the mask thing. They were just photos that I had. So this was that school-wide STEM activities where the parents come for about an hour. Now, I know a lot of you said work commitments can kind of limit this. So making sure that the activities that you have are at different times. This one happens to be during the school day, but having one just after school, or having one in the evening, or having an activity on a Saturday, to make sure that you're reaching all those different demographics of families, depending on what their work commitments are. So parents are partners, or my previous school called it pro nights, where we believe that parents are partners in their students' education. And so we don't expect for parents to be teaching phonics at home, but showing them, hey, here's how you sit with your kid and read, and introduce them to a book. And so sharing that at a night for them, or math night, where you sit, you provide them with some tools and a little bit of education, but a little bit of fun too, and some tools that they can take home. So when I did this at a previous school, I gave them just a couple of laminated sheets, like game boards, along with a deck of cards and some dice. And that was their little goodie bag at the end of the night. But it went along with all of the things that that we had talked about that night. Hey, Tom, I have a feeling that some people are now joining at 10 o'clock with the other name. But so welcome to those of you that have just joined. We started at 9. I think there was a little confusion about the times that this started. So for those of you that are just joining, I will stay on at the end, and I can kind of go back and talk about some of the stuff I talked about earlier. And then also Mylene is recording it, so you can see some of the stuff from the earlier that we presented earlier. But welcome, and thanks for being here. And you're welcome to put any questions or anything in the chat. But again, welcome. STEM night. So I talked about having a whole school STEM day, but this is a STEM night where a lot of you probably have resources in your community. For example, we have a couple universities here that when I reach out to them, for example, we have Gonzaga here. They have an amazing neuroscience department. And a couple years ago when we had our big STEM night, I said, hey, can you have a table for kids to come in and do some interactive stuff? And they did. So we had about 6 tables set up, and it started out with our wax museum. So our students presented some things that they were studying, starting with our kindergartners. They dressed up in STEM career outfits. So, that was their wax museum. Our lower primary grades did famous inventors, and they dressed up as that. And then our older kids did some astronauts and dressed up as astronauts. And it was a big STEM or a wax museum where they had they pretended to be asleep, and then someone pushed a button and they came alive. That was the first half of the night. And then the second half of the night was them going through 6 stations of different science activities, or science, technology, engineering, and math activities. And most of the stations were people from our community that was their specialty. So like I said, reaching out to your local universities and asking them. A lot of times they'll bring their students who are studying a particular topic or subject and have their students run it. And it's a great experience for their students to show what they've been learning. And it's great for your families to get to participate in those things. So a sports night, ask your PE teachers to have a family fitness night. This is great. Those families that are like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable going and and learning about literacy, but hey, I can go and do some fitness fun with my kiddo. Definitely kind of reaches a different group of families there. An art night. Again, I did this at our previous school where we had 6 different stations and families could go and do different art activities. We also did that as a fundraiser night too, where they could put in raffle tickets for different art kits that they got to take home. The gardening Sunday, if you have a school or community garden, or Saturday, sorry, and you can invite families to come and work in the garden. Your fund run, if you're doing one of those, I know some people are using different companies to run their fund run, but if you reach out to the right parents at your school, personal invitations to families and parents at your school to help you organize a fund run, it's definitely can be successful. So we do it here ourselves. We don't reach out to a company, and our parents run it. I just kind of stand by their side and support them. School-wide STEM Day, we talked about that earlier with, and those of you that are just joining, I can go back and share that, like I said. The trades night, like I was sharing earlier, where you invite different trades, jobs and careers in your area that focus more on the trades. And then a library night, whether that be in your school library and sharing with parents the different resources that are there, or as a school community, having a meetup at your local library where the children's librarian can walk your families through some different things that are available at the public library. Here's our literacy night that we held last year. And so there was a variety of family literacy activities. And then at one point during the night, we took the kiddos and did some games and activities with them while the parents had about 30 minutes of just some information on bringing literacy into their homes with their students. And it was taught by the grade level teachers. So the kinder teacher did the kinder parents, and the elementary teachers did the elementary parents, and so on. And the preschool teachers taught the preschool parents. While our kids did a book walk, very similar to a cake walk, only the prize was a book instead of a cake. And they got to visit our school library and hear a story and do an activity there. We also had a used book sale, and we used that money that we raised at the used book sale towards some more books for our library. So it was definitely a fun night. The theme was superheroes, so a lot of the kids were wearing some superhero masks and capes and things like that. And then I did an activity whole group with all the families on prediction and how that works when you're reading a story together as a family. Here's one of those family STEM nights that I talked about earlier. So this happened to be one that I did in my previous school, but the one here at our school was the wax museum combo with the 6 stations. This particular one that I'm showing you pictures here of was there was 4 classrooms, and each classroom had different activities in it. And so the families rotated through those 4 classrooms. But this is a great opportunity to reach out, like I said, to your local businesses in your community and ask them, how could they support your STEM night? So with that, leads us to our final topic of community engagement. Getting to know your local businesses is huge. Asking them for specific donations, and then asking them to partner with you in events. And for example, a few years ago, we had our first basketball team here, and they needed jerseys, and that was not in the budget. So I called the credit union across the street and said, hey, could you sponsor our basketball jerseys? And they, without skipping a beat, said, sure, how much? And I told them, and then I said, hey, would you like to have a table at our first basketball game? And they said, we would love to. Well, not only did they set up a table, but they actually brought drinks for our whole team, the away team as well. They brought them all Gatorade, and they brought snacks for all of our players. And then they set up a little table that, with just some little info about their credit union. But they sponsored our team for that whole season, and it was pretty awesome. So, and now they reach out to me too every year. Hey, what do you need this year? And so pretty awesome. We've got, like I said, Starbucks loves to, when I call them at Christmas time and ask for drink coupons for all my teachers, they're like, yep, you got it. Asking these places to partner with you at different events. And we have a Kona Ice guy that I call up, and he is at our fun run. That's one of our prizes for our kids. And then I also ask him to come to a couple other events throughout the year, and he always gives me a donation back after the event is over. So connecting just with different businesses in your community. So this was a big event that we brought together students and parents in our community last year. And it was kind of just a crazy idea. And I'm like, how can we get people into our school? Those of you with private schools, you can understand this. And so this was just as our mask mandate was ending, and people were looking for things for their kids to do. For a couple of years, we really cut kids off from doing activities in our community, like sports and enrichment programs and things like that. And so this was a great opportunity where I looked up every kid activity in our local area that I could imagine. It was actually the week I had COVID. I sat in my bed and Googled every kid activity that I could find. And then I had a committee of parents that helped with this. And we reached out to all those businesses and asked them, hey, do you want to come to a Saturday convention just for kids where they can learn about your business, and maybe their parents can sign up, connect with your business. And it was pretty awesome. The kids came in, they all got their own little swag bag, which was sponsored by a business. And that swag bag, just like the expos that we all go to as adults, only this was just for kids and their parents, of course. They came to our school's booth and it was an interactive booth. There was a book walk for kids. There was our local volunteer police cop shop did a family ID station, so parents could do the fingerprinting and family IDs. And then the kids got to go from table to table learning about different resources and businesses in the community that were just for them. There were summer camps, there was dentists, there was gymnastics, there was dance, there was a foreign exchange student table, there was churches, there was, so many cool things for kids, and it was all about them that day. And I've already been asked if we're doing it again this year because it was just so much fun. So, and yes, we are. All right. So as school leaders, what's our role in all of this and engagement with our staff, with our students, and with our families, and then of course the community? One, being visible, and being in the classroom, visible to our students, visible to our staff, and then just being out amongst our families and being visible with them. Making those connections. I mentioned earlier how, wherever you can make that connection, whether it's in the drop-off line or, reaching out personally to a family or to our staff. We talked about those check-ins with the teachers and making sure that you're connecting one-on-one with your teachers and filling their tanks to keep them going. Communication, which is huge, communicating with your staff, with your families, developing that culture. And we talked about how students need to feel safe and connected in order to bloom, as we talked about. So having all those basic needs met before they can learn. So making sure that culture is being developed. Being transparent with your staff and your community, and then understanding the needs of your school. So the last part of this, how do we figure out what the needs of our school are? So a few years ago, right in the midst of COVID, we did what was called a SWAT assessment with our school. And I invited our school board, our staff, parents, Students could come, but I'm not sure that it was quite, students could come if they wanted. And we did posters around the room. I divided up all the people in attendance into 4 different groups. And there was a poster on one side of the room that said our strengths. There was a poster that said our weaknesses. There was a poster that said opportunities, and then one that said threats. And these, I did 4 very diverse groups, and they walked around the room together, brainstorming these things right here. And of course, after that brainstorming session, we celebrated our strengths. And then we addressed some of those weaknesses and talked about how could we fix that and make it better. And so from that, we came up with a couple of great plans and worked on carrying those out last year and now into this year as well. So I have a challenge for you. And I know some of you joined late, and that's sorry about the confusion there. But if you would like to join or click on that QR code, and Mylene, I have a feeling this one's going to be the same way, that I'm going to have to make sure I have access to this one. So let me make sure that this one, that there's access here. Let's see. It's going to take me a second to get the access back. I have a feeling it's not made public yet. Uh-oh. It's not even letting me access it. There we go. Share. All right. Give it a try there. If you could share something that you're going to work on over the next month to increase engagement at your school. And again, if you're not familiar with Jamboard, if you just grab, thanks, Tom. If you grab a little Post-it over here, you can change the color of it and then click on that. And when I'm going to suggest is a school library night, as we haven't done that yet. Now that our public libraries are available again. Oh, I love it. So somebody's already got, and it comes up as anonymous. I can't tell who put that, but they're going to put the I reached my goal, ordering something for I reached my goal. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited for our goal bell. Anybody else going to start something in the next month that's going to, you feel will increase engagement? Or maybe you want to just add it to the chat. Could do that as well. Yeah, I love that, Darlene. Thank you. Yeah, and sometimes it's about what works for you too. You know, what's comfortable for you. Although as school leaders, sometimes we have to jump out of our comfort zone. Yeah, positive phone calls home. It's so powerful. Or just, you know, even stopping a parent in the hall and saying, hey, you know, I saw your kid do this today, and I wish that you had been there to see it too, because you would have been so proud. Some PTO fundraiser events, yeah, and getting those families involved with that is huge. I'm going to, I'll put my email here in the chat, although it is at the end. This is if some of you have questions about something that I talked about too. Yeah, I would love that. If you guys can share too with Tom, just some things that the source can do to support school and district leaders with staff, student, family, and community engagement. All right. So let's come back here to my presentation. I mentioned some books that I had talked about, or some authors and things, and I put some things as we were going through. So I wanted to make sure that I shared some of those things with you. This one here, The Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, is the one that I did the book study last year with my daughter's school. And the teachers were also doing that one at the same time. Learning on Your Feet. I mentioned Brad Johnson earlier about not keeping our kids in their desk all day. And so there's a book that he has, this cognitive engagement, just 50 quick strategies. Yesterday, as I was sharing with one of our math teachers, hey, let's talk about some ways that your kids can do math that's not just paper, pencil, sitting in a seat. And so she and I talked about 2 different things that she could do, and she was so excited to go try one of those today. So I'm excited to go peek in on her math class this afternoon and see how that goes. I talked a lot about the Kagan structures and that training that's available through Kagan. There's one of their engagement strategies programs. I mentioned Chris Biffle. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to forward there. Chris Biffle and his whole brain teaching and his super improvers. And if you ever have the opportunity to go to a Chris Biffle training, I highly encourage it. And then this last one, Unpack Your Impact. I am so excited. This is actually a book I'm reading right now. And yesterday I had a teacher come in my office and I said, hey, I'm so excited about this book. And I was telling her about it. And she's like, oh, who's the author? And I told her, and she goes, oh, that lesson I was doing today, it's actually from this author, these 2 authors. They have a blog that she follows, and she's like, that lesson I was doing is actually from them. So she and I were she was using what's in this book, and I'm reading this book, and we didn't even realize that we were doing that. So super excited about that book right now. So just some books there to share with you. And you guys are welcome to send me an email. I don't know why the L on Gmail is on the next line there. Sorry about that. But I would love to connect and answer questions, or hear that you tried something and it worked, or if you have some other ideas for engagement, just hearing about those as well. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and just if anybody wants to give any things that they've tried and within your own school or district that you want to share as far as engagement goes.
While people are thinking about that, Gretchen, I'd just like to thank you. You are phenomenal.
Thanks, Tom.
What I really liked was the practical strategies, and I saw some people sort of going over to the side of their desk and making a little note about something that they wanted to refer back to, and so there's practical strategies people can do. And I started thinking about my career as a principal, and boy, would I do some things differently based on what I heard today. So thank you so much. You and I will follow up, because there's just a wealth of information and expertise here that can be shared with people all over the place. So just thank you so much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Well, thanks, you guys. This is something that gets me excited, and I love sharing that with others. And I just think that's something that's really cool that's come out of COVID, that we can have these webinars. It used to be, oh, you got to go to a conference and all of that. And now, I mean, we can share with people all over the country the ideas that are working in our schools or that we've tried. So it's pretty awesome.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks for attending today, and especially all those who stuck through it.
Yeah,
all the
thank
time.
you. This went a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, I'm thinking of redoing this in 4 sections, right? That'll be a half hour long.
Yeah, thank you. And I know
So
a couple of you joined a little bit later, so if you have any questions, I know Tom was gonna share it out too to everybody, so you can watch the first portion of that. So
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Everyone,
this is Darlene. I'll go back and watch some of the first portion. I'm sorry I was late. Actually, I wasn't confused about the time. I just didn't open my computer and get the link early enough, but I'll go back and look at some of the others. But it was really helpful when you had all the boxes there and then you did that summary at the end. So I don't know what you did the rest of it, but I got a lot of information in 40 minutes. So.
oh, awesome. Okay, well, good. And Darlene, where are you from?
Well, actually, I'm part of the Montana group that Tom works with, but currently I'm sitting in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
And interestingly enough, years ago, and I do mean years ago, I used to train for Kagan.
Oh, so you're familiar with Kagan?
I certainly am.
Yeah, when
And
I
they are time tested and they still work. I use them if I do a workshop quite often. I use a lot of his strategies.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to do it on Zoom. In fact, I was kind of watching how my previous colleagues were doing it. So the school district that I previously worked for, we did the 5-day training and I loved it, loved every part of it. And I know it's takes some teachers out of their comfort zones, you know, letting the kids kind of take control. Well, no, you still have control of the classroom, but letting the kids, you know, do that. It does mean the teacher has to be comfortable doing that, but it's pretty powerful.
It absolutely is. So thanks. I was happy to see that it's still out there.
Yeah. So, all right.
thanks, Darlene. Thanks, Gretchen. Thanks, Mylene.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody. I'll be
Thanks, all.
sending a link to all of you. Gretchen will talk. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank
Great.
you. Bye, all.
Bye, all.